Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. I am not sure if my co-host will be joining me for this episode, titled Master Chief, for all you Halo fans out there, as we look ahead going against the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday night to be able to help us break down this game coming up with a lot of news circulating around Washington at the moment. Is a newcomer to the Washington, D.C. media base. That is Mr. Tashan Reed of the Washington Post. Thank you for joining me on this Friday evening, sir. How are you doing?
Pretty good, man. Appreciate you having me. I got my days of the week all mixed up with them having all these Monday night games. It feels like a Thursday, but looking forward to it.
And I appreciate you for being flexible with time. I know it's difficult right now trying to get these things to line up. But with me coaching football and having little ones, it's time is hard to come by nowadays. So I always appreciate anybody willing to be flexible with me. But in speaking of flexibility, it looks like, in your opinion, do you think Terry and Deebo are suiting up for this game?
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, barring some sort of setback between now and Monday, both of those guys are on track to play. Terry spoke to us today for the first time, since he got hurt, kind of let us into his process, since he suffered that quad injury back against the Raiders in week 3. And said it was a matter of he wanted to be fully himself and ready to go before he got back out there. Those soft tissue injuries are pretty tricky. They can feel good one day and you feel off the next. And it's one thing to be able to get through a practice, but another thing to be able to ramp up fully to gain speed. And he really wasn't at that point where he felt comfortable until this week, and that led to the delay in him coming back. Debo has been more so something that he's been, dealing with on and off the last
Right.
few weeks, really going back to the LA game against the Chargers. He's been playing through it, but last week it just didn't feel right. And so he felt like it'd be good to rest up. But looks like both of those guys are going to get back out there. So see that receiver core, start to come back into form. Noah Brown's still on IR, so he's going to miss the next few games, at least with that groin injury. But at least the rest of the position group is starting to shape back up.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to put you in a bad spot, Tashawn, but like the whole process regarding Terry's injury was very weird because he asked for multiple opinions. We heard like it was like three different body parts it could possibly be. Like, do you have any indicator on what this injury was? Because like obviously the second choice, there was one doctor on Twitter, I forget who it was, but was saying like possibly like 2 months he could have been out. But that makes sense as to why it took this long. But I know you said a soft tissue injury. Do you know like in any capacity what it was?
They haven't been too specific in terms of like the exact name of it. We just know it was indeed a quad injury.
Okay.
And I think, there was some mixed reporting out there, like you said. Some people said it was a core injury, some people
Yeah.
said it was, hip flexor, these different things. But I think in terms of him getting a second opinion, it was just a matter of him trying to figure out exactly what it was. He said today he had never really quite dealt with an injury like this one.
Hmm.
Those injuries are kind of tough to predict when a guy's going to return. They were optimistic that he could come back sooner than he did, and that's why he didn't place him on IR. And I know some fans have really been up in arms about them not doing that, but like ultimately, like he missed 4 games anyway. So like if they put him on IR, he would have missed 4 games. They didn't. He missed 4 games. So like who cares really? Like the only difference is they would have opened up a roster spot, but I mean, I don't know what other receivers people see out there that they think they could have signed the last couple weeks that would have helped them. So ultimately, like the whole timing of it and all that ended up really being a non-factor. There never was any like tension between him and the team. I know people kind of got a little wild with the conspiracy theories and whatnot, but it was kind of a weird nagging injury, but I think he just wanted to be, this guy that's never really missed time like that
Right.
before. I mean, only missed 3 games in his career. And so this is unusual for him. And so I think it makes sense. It's kind of his first significant injury, at least in his pro career, to kind of be really cautious about coming back from it, especially as he's getting older, turning 30 years old last month.
Yeah, and welcome to the party, Tashawn, where you can see the conspiracy theories and just how crazy some. Obviously, this fan base loves this football team, and that's just the way it goes. It's funny because some could make the argument as to this is what happens when a player holds out at 30 years old, they get injured. But then there's people on like my behalf that kind of think like me to say, well, this is exactly why he held out because he didn't have much guaranteed money. In case of injury, he would have been in a bad spot next season if he did have this injury happen without much guaranteed looking for that next contract. But obviously Jaden Daniels is out this week. He's not playing on Monday night. It's not crazy news to anybody with a cell phone. Um, how concerned are you with Jaden's injury? Because obviously, I believe Dan Quinn that this isn't a long term thing. Do you envision this playing out like Terry, or do you think it's going to be a little bit more accelerated than that?
Yeah, well, it sounds less significant than Terry's injury. It's a low grade hamstring strain in his right leg, and hamstrings can be, tricky.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I said earlier, any of those soft tissue injuries, it's kind of hard to project. You could get out there next week and try to give it a go, and it doesn't respond properly, and he ends up missing another game. So they don't want to speak too definitively, and I think that's smart to do. You don't want to put that expectation on him with that type of injury, but I'd be pretty surprised if it's something where he's out for the next month off of this at this point, barring obviously some sort of setback. And so, I know people have gotten a little bit like worried about him this year between the knee sprain earlier this year that he suffered against the Packers that caused him miss a couple games and this one, but these are relatively minor injuries. Like every injury is major to cause you to miss games, but it's not like season ending or career altering. And all the RG3 comparisons have gotten out of hand, in my opinion. I think people are, I understand why people are worried about him. Like, that's the franchise guy. He's a young quarterback. And there's a little PTSD there from the fan base as well. But
Absolutely.
yeah, for sure. But like, these injuries aren't really like these big injuries. You know what I mean? I think it's more so the timing has been unfortunate because the rest of the team has been, really rattled by all these injuries on both sides of the ball. We talked about Terry and Deebo, but also on defense, you're losing Dorrance Armstrong this week for the season. His team's really been really beat up, and they aren't able to account for his. It would always be difficult to account for his absence, but especially when the rest of the team is all beat up too, it's just really tough for him to stay afloat when he's missing time like this. And so, it's going to be tough sledding this week. I mean, the Chiefs are, every year they're the Chiefs. I know people want them to go away, but they're not. The top three offense and defense so far this season. Patrick Mahomes is looking like Patrick Mahomes again. Going in there on Arrowhead Monday Night Football is going to be tough without Jaden Daniels, but this is really more about the long term view and preserving his health moving forward.
Yeah, they've the Chiefs have come a long way since ever since Travis Kelce was taking out his own teammates, which was absolutely insane week one. But with that being said, how long did you work with the Raiders, Tashan?
So I covered them for the Athletic for 5 seasons. So
For
going
five
back to
seasons. So
2020.
were you there? You weren't there for Mariota then.
No, I was there. Yeah, he was there. That's when he was
So,
backing up Derek Carr.
with that being said, what's your feeling with Mariota starting on Monday, given with the small sample size this season, but also given your kind of history of seeing Mariota?
Yeah, I mean, he's shown he can be an effective pitch hitter before. I mean, Derek Carr didn't miss many games during my time covering the Raiders, but that one game he did miss. Mariota came off the bench and he was balling out. And we saw last year he helped the Commanders win a couple games. While Jaden played in those games, he wasn't able to finish them,
Right.
and Mariota came in and helped them get the job done. He looked good against the Raiders this year. Speaking to them, so he's not a guy that at this stage of the career you want him being your full time starter or anything by those means, but you need him to come in for a game or two here and there. He can get that done. He has that mobility to where they can run in a lot of the same stuff in the run game that they do with Jaden. Cliff Kingsbury doesn't really have to change the offense all that much. I think the big thing for Mariota is not getting caught up in trying to do too much,
Yeah.
and that's where you lead to those turnovers, whether it's, we saw that against and the game was kind of out of hand, but the pick six against the Cowboys, or that one play even in the Raiders win where he was like trying to hurdle somebody and fumbled. It's like, we don't need you to do, if you're the Commanders, you don't need them to do all that, just kind of stay within the script, protect the football and do what you do, but don't get too out of body. And so I think that's going to be the thing that he has to be really careful with against the Chiefs.
Absolutely. He should have confidence in himself. But just because you're wearing a helmet, don't forget about those gray hairs that you got, Mariota. Just chill out just a little bit, man. But that was a phenomenal answer. I want to talk a little bit about the defensive changes. I know Dan Quinn is very tight-lipped in the sense he doesn't want opposing teams to be able to know exactly what they are going to do. And the one thing he said about the defensive changes was that you expect better play, right? Do you expect anybody to be moving around? I know Joe Wick kind of talks about Jordan McGee and Kane Madrano even being called up a little bit in this game. What do you envision possibly will come down to pipeline for the defense?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like wholesale personnel changes. It'll be little things here and there. We saw Jordan McGee start to play a little more last week
Right.
too, and so I think they're going to ramp that up a little bit more. He has a little bit more sideline to sideline speed than Louisville and Wagner at this point in their careers. But with all the injuries, I mean, it's not that many guys to pull from, off the
Right.
bench with this defense. Like a lot of people are calling for like Lattimore to get benched and all these different guys to get benched, but it's like for who? Like
Right.
who do you want to come off the bench for these guys? And so I think it's going to have to come down to more scheme adjustments, and they talked about that as well. Making it less complex, simplifying some of their calls, trying to kill some of that hesitation, and allow their guys to play more fast and free, and not do as much thinking. It's kind of one of those weird things in sports where if you're thinking about making a mistake, that tends to be when
Right.
you make the most mistakes, and I think that's been an element of what's happening on defense these last couple of weeks, and so. I know some people are calling for him to like blitz more with the pass rushers being hurt. I don't know if that's going to be the answer. I actually think they should probably get a little more conservative, maybe playing more zone, doing a little bit less blitzing, just because the amount of big plays that they're giving up, it seems like they're taking a little bit too many risks, and this defense doesn't really have the personnel to play that way. Kind of the model that they want to, that aggressive attacking style of defense. Like I think that's a fine philosophy, but you got to have the dudes, and they just don't seem to have that right now. Due to all the injuries that they've had all three levels. And so I think it's going to have to be schematic from here. I mean, you're not going to get, there's free agent market is pretty thin right now. I
Right.
don't think this team is really in a position where they should be making big trades at the deadline. You're pretty much going to have a group of guys that you have. You can make little changes here and there, but it's going to have to come down to Joe Witt and Dan Quinn making some schematic changes.
Yeah, which was like I said this a couple weeks ago to Sean that I was like, look, if you're gonna do anything, Bobby and Frankie have really shown the ability, like their strength, to be able to get after the quarterback. And so, if you're gonna do anything, you should be blitz heavy a lot. And but the weird thing is that Joe Witt this week said, well, we've been really good with the 4-man rush, right? And it's almost like, well, like you got to pick and choose, right? Like you got to be able to say we're going to go all out and get after the quarterback, but if you kind of like have that hesitant kind of footing and being able to bring some extra pressure, it's you're almost hoping that the secondary rushing for is able to get home, right? Like you're hoping that the secondary is able to cover guys up enough for that 4-man rush to get home. And honestly, at this point, it seems like that isn't really working.
I mean, they're blitzing it like relatively often. I think they're eighth.
They're
I think
eighth.
Joe Witt said third today, but I think it's eighth. They are in blitz rate right now coming into
Okay.
this week, and so it's been pretty frequent. They're playing man coverage, or top 10 in man coverage rate as well. So I mean, they could ramp it up some more, but I don't know that would really render results for them. You can get burned, especially against Patrick Mahomes. Like this isn't just some young quarterback who you can rattle and get him
Right.
off. He's used to running around, getting off platform, making throws from weird arm angles. Like if you blitz him a lot, I think it might be a long night for you. It might be a long night for you either way, but
Right.
I don't think that's necessarily the answer against this guy.
Yeah, especially with Andy Reid, those two together,
Mm.
it's pretty insane. It's like the Frankenstein and the Doctor, man. They really are great together. My next question for you, obviously going back with Jason Simmons being the passing game secondary coach, I think at the Raiders before he came to Washington, if I'm not mistaken. With this secondary, like what do you see as someone who's covered the NFL for well over 5 years? What do you see with this secondary? Is it as simple as simplifying things down?
I mean, it's been one of those like you've seen some plays where I don't even think it's necessarily an issue with the scheme or the call or even the coverage. It's just guys are there and they're not making the plays on the ball. I think
Mm,
about, that long touchdown catch CD Lamb had, where Lattimore and Quan Martin ran into each other. They were both right there. Like either one
right.
of them could have deflected it or picked it off, but they ran into each other instead. Or, that long catch that George Pickens had before halftime on that drive that they put together really quickly. Like Lattimore was right there. He just didn't make a play on the ball, and so it's not anything wrong with the coverage. It's not anything wrong with the call. You just got to make plays when it's time to make plays, and sometimes it's as simple as that. And we have seen miscommunication and blown coverages and things of that nature. So I think it's been a mix of things. Whether it's individual performance, guys not executing as they should, and maybe some guys aren't executing as they should because the play call is too complex. I don't want to and I'm not in there in the green dot with Bobby Wagner and hearing what the call is, and not knowing exactly. It's kind of it's tough to watch on film sometimes. You see a guy do something, you're not sure if he's actually supposed to do that or not. So
Exactly.
don't want to read too much into it. And coach or a player isn't going to put a guy on blast like that and say, "Oh yeah, he did this." So it's been a mixed bag of things. I think the personnel just hasn't played up to par this year. I think Lattimore gets a lot of flack, but Mike Sainristil has been a step back for him as a second year player. Quan Martin hasn't quite been the same as he typically is. I think Trey Amos as a rookie is solid, but he's a rookie. He's going to have those bumps in the road, those growing pains, and then they obviously have Will Harris on IR right now. They were hoping to depend on him as a starter, and I thought he had a pretty good start to the season before he got hurt against the Raiders. But now you have Jeremy Reeves, who's really more of a special teams guy, and they're playing starting level snaps on defense, and so. I think it's a mix of a few things on the back end. I don't think it's all to blame on the players, all to blame on the coaches. I think it's really a mix of both. And in
Yeah,
addition to the pass rush kind of being, while their numbers look pretty good, I think the pass rush has kind of been inconsistent a little bit. Like they have these games where they might have 4 or 5 sacks, and then they have other games where it's nothing. So, I think that has tied into it as well.
yeah, absolutely. I think Javon Kinlaw in the locker room deemed it a roller coaster type, and that's what the issue with Washington kind of has been, either through the ground game on offense or even the just defense altogether. You have one good week, you have one bad week, and you don't know what your identity is at this point, what to hang your hat on when you go into a game. But hopefully, going against somebody like Kansas City could kind of help with that. But to wrap this up, Tashawn, only a couple more questions for you, sir. But what is the way, a path for Washington to beat Kansas City? As much as they are the media darlings, the National Football League spotlight, they get a lot of the attention, they get all the primetime games, deservedly so. But for Washington, this would be a heavy hitter for Washington to be able to take down. How could they do that? How could they succeed?
I think like even with McLaurin and Samuel coming back, I think the offensive game plan really has to be oriented around the run game.
Agreed.
They've been one of the more efficient teams in the league, but we've seen those attempts kind of vary throughout the season. They
Right.
kind of I don't really know why, but sometimes they go these long stretches without running the ball or without running the ball consecutive times in a row. It's really kind of weird considering how good they are at it. I don't think you can do that against the Chiefs. You have a couple of those quick three and outs, get a ball back to Patrick Mahomes, and you might be down 14 zip just like that. And then at that point, the game's pretty much over. So
Yep.
the Chiefs defense has been really, elite this season, but their run defense has been okay. They're around, I think, middle of the pack, like 14th or 15th in yards per carry allowed, something like that. So the run defense
So
hasn't been particularly great. The issue is typically teams have to start being really pass heavy against the Chiefs to try to keep up with that offense. And so I think if they can establish the run, control the clock, which is something they haven't really done this season, they've been pretty bad. And we talked about turnover margin a lot. I don't think people talk about time of possession as much. Like
yeah.
they're really losing that battle as well. So I think if they can flip that, keep the Chiefs offense and their defense, obviously the Commanders defense off the field as much as they can, I think that's kind of the way you have to try to grind this one away and sneak out a victory if it's going to happen. Because if you try to go back and forth in the shootout with the Chiefs, they're not going to come out on top in this one.
No, and you're absolutely right. The offense has been struggling on third downs this season. Washington's defense has actually been pretty good on third downs and in the red zone, but that would typically mean that they're getting deep drives, the bend but don't break defense, which really tips the scales with the time of possession. To your point, my next question for you, sir: one player that has to step up on Monday night.
Oh man, I think
You can't pick Mariota because that's the easy one.
right. Can't pick the quarterback. That's a little too easy. Um, you mentioned him earlier. I'm tempted to say because one thing that we haven't talked about, Deron Payne, he has his practice the first couple of days this week with a toe injury,
Yeah.
and so we'll see, if he's able to get back out there today and ultimately able to play this week. If not, I think Kinlaw is a guy that you could point to there in the middle that they need to have a huge game. But I'm actually gonna go with Bill Krosky Merritt. I think he had that breakout game against the Chargers a few weeks ago. Looked like he really turned the corner, and these last 2 weeks have been pretty quiet for him. He had that big fumble against the Bears early on in the game that was costly. Last week didn't make a huge mistake, but he just wasn't that effective against the Cowboys, and the game got away from him a little bit there. But playing into what I said earlier about needing to establish the run, I think if he can have a big game in this one, that could really be an equalizer that helps get that game plan going. And so, defensively, I think this is going to be a tough matchup. I'm not sure that there's one player that can really step up and change the game against the Chiefs offense, but I think if Bill has another huge day, that could be something that flips it for the offense.
Absolutely, winning that time of possession battle. To your earlier point, to Sean. A really quick question. I'm not sure if this will be a last one, but obviously you being new to the area, you've been to DC before. We were talking before, but so how has the transition been for you? Coming from Vegas, I'm sure it's a different type of life.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty crazy considering, the timing of it. I started on the beat week 3. Typically, just like the players, if there's going to be some movement with journalists, it happens in the off season.
Right.
So it almost felt like getting traded, to a degree. Because I know when you spend a whole training camp, learning, I knew the Raiders, but learning new players, diving deep into the team. Because when you're a beat writer, it's not just the big names and the head coach and all that. Like, everything, the backups, the scouts, all this stuff.
Right.
And then it's like, all right, axe all that and start over with this new team, and, obviously, Jaden Daniels, Dan Quinn, et cetera, so on and so forth. But all those nitty gritty details, you have to start over from scratch. But it's the season. So, you have games to cover, you got practices to cover, all this stuff is happening on the fly. So it's been pretty hectic along the way, moving across the country from Las Vegas to DC is not a small move, getting used to it. I'm on the Arlington side, but getting used to the DMV area and all that. So it's been a lot going on, but it's been fun. It's been a new challenge for me. Coming over to the Washington Post, changing to a different company for the first time in my young journalism career. So been a lot of transition, a lot of change, but it's all been something that's kind of added a little bit more fun to it. Kind of trying to navigate that and figure it out.
My man, Sam Fortier, who was there obviously before you, is a good friend of our show.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked to him for years, and obviously wish him the best in his new position. But I'm glad that I was able to speak with you tonight. I hear you on the pressers, always asking questions. You're the opposite of Chris Russell, where it's very like low keel, even keel type of answering, asking questions. I appreciate that. It's hard to hear your questions sometimes because honestly, you'd love to hear the question and the answer, so you can really get a gauge on things. But luckily,
Mm-hmm.
with most of yours, we're able to actually hear them. But the last question I have for you, and I promise before I let you get out of here, what is a matchup for Monday night that you think is going to be that intrigues you?
I think one. It's interesting because they move him around sometimes, so it's kind of hard to say. But I think if they move him around, if they follow each other, I think McDuffie going against McLaurin,
Mm,
like that could be the best matchup that we see out there. Because I think especially with that being McLaurin's first game off an injury, McDuffie's gonna be challenging, and going at him and playing physical at the line of scrimmage. And I think whether he's lined up at nickelback or outside, he's one of the more effective corners in the league, in my opinion. And the Commanders gonna need him to have a big game, even if they are run first in this one to swing the tide against this Chiefs defense. And so I think that matchup could be a pretty fun one to watch.
absolutely. And with the big man Chris Jones in the middle, can't forget about my boy Shamari Connor playing slot corner. I think for them at the moment. If not, they moved him to safety. I'm not sure if he is playing in this game, but he's another good corner. Tashawn, I can't thank you enough for your time and obviously your flexibility to be able to come on here and join me. I'm sorry my co-hosts aren't here to meet you as well. Hopefully we'll be able to get you on again. Hopefully in happier times in the future that we can actually make happen for both of us. But before you get out of here, Tashawn, I'd just like to plug your social media handle, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet, sir.
Yes, at Tashan Reed, TashanReed. So follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, and me and Tom Shad, my beat partner at the Washington Post, just had an article today come out on Terry's pin and return and
Mm,
everything that's gone into his rehab from the quad injury. So go over and check that out.
my man, I can't thank you enough, Tashawn. Enjoy your weekend, sir.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you having me.
Thank
Peace.
you. All right, everybody. We just spoke with a man, Mr. Tashawn Reed. Very, very impressive guy, I will say. And what the timing for Tashawn as well, coming from Vegas with the Raiders, and then like obviously he said he got transferred like week 2, week 3, and then he comes to Washington. They immediately play the Raiders, so I guess that was a little bit of a layup for Tashawn there. But before we are joined by our next guest, we did have a question submitted. This one by the Colonel. He said, "We've been here before. Insurmountable odds, yet we beat the Steelers, who were undefeated, and the Eagles, who were undefeated the past consecutive years. Why can't we beat the Chiefs? Did I watch the Cleveland Browns beat the undefeated Green Bay Packers several weeks ago?" Yes, you did, sir, and you're not wrong. Obviously, these are very two different situations. You can say, with Washington, I distinctly remember the Eagles game where Taylor Heineke and this team won, and people would even say saying Taylor Heineke won that game would be a stretch to say, but they really did do a good job of ground and pound in that game, of being able to control the clock, keep the ball away from Philly, be able to score enough points to be able to separate just a little bit at the end of that game to win. And I would imagine that's the same kind of type of MO you're going to have against Kansas City. This is a lightning, explosive offense, especially with getting back Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy finally being healthy, this speedster that he is. And you can't forget about the guys underneath, of course. So, like, those are situations where you look at it and say, do we have the horses to be able to limit that? And if you were able to wash away your memory of the defense the past couple weeks, on paper you'd say they are perfectly set up for this kind of offense. To say, well, Marshawn Lattimore is very capable of being able to run with Rashee Rice. You have Trey Amos, who could easily be able to go up against in size differential with Xavier Worthy. But the past couple weeks kind of muddies that, and that's why it's very doom and gloom. But when you just look at it to say, we have the horses to do it. It's just we got to be able to execute with those horses, right? We got to be able to run fast in the race, make sure that they're fully ready to go and hit the ground running, so to speak. And I would imagine they're going to have a different intensity about them. And yeah, you did see the Packers lose to the Browns. I still think Anthony was right about that matchup, that the Packers didn't game plan for the Lions in that Week 1 matchup, and they literally game planned for a month for Washington heading into that Week 2 matchup. So I definitely think that was a legitimate thing, in my personal opinion. So I think that what you're seeing with I keep asking the question, what happened to the Packers? They were looking like one of the best teams in the league, and in the last couple of weeks, they've kind of fallen off a little bit. Which begs the question: was it the ability of being able to game plan for multiple weeks at a time? Now they've had to switch to game plan once a week, right? And now you're kind of seeing their true colors, so to speak. And that's my kind of feeling on it. But why can't we beat the Chiefs? This team absolutely can. We've seen it before. We've seen this team do some crazy things with lesser quarterbacks than they have now. I think I talked about it with my personal football team. Sometimes you just need things to unravel a little bit in order to tighten them back together. And with Washington, I think that this could be one of those situations. Like, you need the confidence back to know that you can do it, that this isn't an impossible task. It can be done with team football, with the right mindset going into the week, with practice habits, with being able to be on the same page with your teammates. That way, because with defense, that's what it really comes down to, is everyone being on the same page. And if they're able to get that done on Monday night, you always have a chance to win. This is the NFL. Any given Sunday or any given Monday, I'm not scared of it. We knew that they were going to have a lot of primetime games this season based on how last season was. But, when the bright lights are on you, you got to dance like Michael, you got to sing like Whitney, and you got to hit like Tyson. And that's what's going to have to happen on Monday night. I hope they play angry. They haven't seemed to be playing angry for some time, and that's something that has to happen, especially going up against this offensive line and defensive line. You got to be able to punch them in the mouth sometimes. You can't just be sitting there like a punching bag, so to speak. But that's how it feels. That's how it's felt over the last couple weeks. Now let's answer some fan questions. This first one by Deluxe. Been out of the loop. Tell me why Washington wins on Monday. I just did. But his next question was, what is the matchup to watch during the game? I think this is a fantastic question that I love that you're asking, Deluxe, because in my personal opinion, this matchup comes down between the offensive line and the defensive line for Kansas City. George Karlaftis, they have it edge rusher. I think he was a 20 sack guy or high teens sack numbers, kind of like Reed, getting those Hall of Fame numbers up there. But with Chris Jones, that's going to be the matchup. Can you be able to move Chris Jones, right? Can you have the misdirection on the ground to confuse those linebackers with Nick Bolton, who is obviously a thumper? He's been a thumper ever since coming out of Missouri. The one avenue that you can beat Nick Bolton is in the passing game, getting him matched up on running backs, getting him matched up on a kind of speedster. That way you can kind of take advantage of things, but it's hard to do that with Steve Spagnuolo, very good defensive coordinator, somebody who is well versed in football. He's known more football than we've all he knows. I don't know. It's late in the day. regardless, Spags is legit. And so what I'm looking for is if Washington is able to move the defensive line with Chris Jones and company, control the ground, ground and pound, control the time of possession, keep that offense off the field, make them one dimensional to allow you to get after Pat more times than not. If you're giving Pat the ability to have his run game be well orchestrated, well executed, that's a tough offense to beat. But if you force them in those kind of passing situations, you can get after Pat a little bit and rattle them, and just being able to have that gunslinger mentality, be able to win on something. But it also goes into actually getting up early, right? Like Washington has really dug themselves in a hole week after week after week, and let's play up. Like why can't we get ahead? Let's try that. And obviously that starts on defense as well, of being able to get off the field. And that bend but don't break defense has shown to be an issue for Washington as of late, but hopefully they're able to get it done on Monday night. It's bright lights, ESPN's watching, and as Washington fans for a long time, we really wanted to see this team play at their best in primetime games, because that seemed to be when they played their worst games. And last season, we shown the propensity to do well in those sort of situations, but at last week and the week and Green Bay kind of was an issue for us in that regard. Now we are joined by the fabulous, fantastic Mr. Rick Doc Walker. What's up, sir? Sorry for this, sir. I'm glad to see you, man. It's been a while.
Hey, man, I was about to turn around wondering who the hell were you introducing? Yeah. No, man, I'm sorry we've been missing, man. It's been hectic. It's been challenging, but you guys are doing it late. I'm an early bird.
I know.
But today we have a podcast at the show, Burgundy. Well, I was in for Sheehan today.
Okay.
And then so I was in for the coach. And it's an interesting time because things aren't going well. The challenge is still there. You're not out of anything, but they definitely have to play better if they hope to get close to the success they had last year.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Rick. And you being a former pro football player, I want to ask this question to you, and just your viewpoint. What do you feel is missing when you watch this team? Maybe not even contrast to last year, but just strictly overall of a football team and how a successful football team operates. What is off, in your opinion?
The hardest thing to do is to repeat success. And especially with a young team. If they were a veteran-laden team, they'd be returning a lot of people in business as usual. It's not that. They inherited one of the worst programs on the planet. And they flipped it and had some success in 6 games they could have very easily lost. They won on the last play. I mean, I don't know if that's ever happened before. So they had a spark. Everything worked. They made it happen. They made plays. You take their number one leader, which is Terry McLaurin, in my opinion. Not their best player, but their best leader, their number one guy. The guy that cranks it up in the locker room, the last voice they hear before they hit the field is Terry's. And I think his influence is unmatched. And then the big plays are unmatched. And so that's a lot to remove. A lot of teams have to play with their left hand. The Niners are a great example of it. No excuses.
Right.
People lose quarterbacks. People lose people. How you respond to it. So we've got some new pieces. And quite frankly, there's some guys that just have not played well. And so you're still in it, though. You still have a chance because mathematically, all that matters is that you still have a chance. And the reports this week from the facility is that there's a spark. And I know you feel like you get a check, you should be sparked every week, but they're human. You're just not. I don't care what profession you're in. And it takes everybody. So I wanted to hear what the vibe was. Donna Hopkins joined us today on the Kevin's show, and she said, man, you could see them, but you could feel them. They're a very enthusiastic group. So, but again, that's verbal. I need better blocking and tackling.
Yeah.
And so then you're going to do this, and you're not going to have the best player on your team. So once again, you're going to go out and without JD5. but you should get some people back. You got your best offensive lineman who survived his first game. I don't know how this dude went out and played an entire game with no preseason, no real contact, but the Longhorn is special. So you should pick up some benefits from that. Quite frankly, I just want to know when this team is going to take on and establish a identity.
Thank you.
I would hope that it's a run-based identity because I think their strength is their depth in the offensive line. I'd rather see 3 tackles on the field than 3 tight ends. Because I got them, they have them. So I'm a Harbaugh guy. I mean, what the Chargers showed you, they get Alt back. You would have thought he was a receiver or O.J. Simpson. Because they got their tackle back. And you knew Harbaugh, I think 42 times he put it in the belly of a back. And they just challenge you. And they run over you. And I think we have that potential. But plays have to be called and the guys have to execute. And you don't have a great pass rush. So you can be as demanding as you want to be on your corners, but you're just showing your lack of experience. They need help. And even Darryl Green will explain it to you. Because he was blessed not only to have gifts, but he had buzz. They were ferocious.
Right.
When is a period of time that under the Gibbs era that we didn't have pressure? Pettibone, we always had pressure. The good teams always have pressure. And so you just got to hope now when we needed some of these young bucks to actually perform. They can't do it from the sideline. I can't put them in a game. But if somehow, some way, this staff decides to play some of these sophomores and freshmen, maybe we'll unlock something.
My man, it's so funny, Doc, because I was going to say, one of my favorite memories of you on this show is you talking about how you want the running game to be just like the Hogs were, where they would come to the line of scrimmage and they would say, the ball's coming here, come right to this and stop it. And there's nothing they can do to stop it. I was going to ask you, because it almost seemed like Washington was developing that identity in the running game, being number 1 in the league in rushing yards a couple weeks ago. But the past 2 games has taken a big step back. And I was going to ask you, how important is it to coming into this game? But I would imagine that you're on the same wavelength as I. It's very important.
Yeah, I only look at it one way. And my keys are always the same. Whoever controls the line of scrimmage usually wins.
Yeah.
You can control it with pass pro, protect your quarterback, or you can just run people over. We got 3 outstanding backs. So we got depth in that position. Now, granted, you lost Eckler. He's an animal and a very talented guy. But you got to move on. And they've done that. They've survived a Pro Bowl player being lost. Robinson, the identity that they had, they've changed that. And they've come out of it okay. I look at that offensive line and go, man, that was my biggest concern. I no longer am concerned about that. So there's really no excuses other than defensively, we have got to play the run better. And they all know it. Now, so wait a minute. Didn't we just say we got to get more pressure? So if we're not getting great pressure and we're not stopping the run, but what are they doing? And so I think they're standing there taking punches instead of delivering the punches. And I'd like to see us blitz more. I'd like to see us go, okay, maybe we can't get there with 4 down, but you don't know. We might send 10. We might zero. We might send everybody. Because at this point, I'm going, you're getting punched in the face and you're just standing there. And it burns me up. But again, I'm not a coach.
Doc, I love talking to you, man. 'Cause that's exactly what I've been saying. Just at this point, just go all no holds barred. Just go after them until they beat you with it. You know what I mean? And just to get some identity back, 'cause it definitely seemed like they have been missing that sort of energy, so to speak. But speaking of missing, we haven't really gotten to talk to you a lot about Jaden, but with his future. Some people will highlight, the sophomore slump and everything like that. I don't put all that much stock into it. I think overall as a team, they just haven't been playing to the caliber of football every week that they were accustomed to last season. I'm not going to put that on Jaden, but with Jaden's future going forward, Are you worried at all with the injury history?
No, because it's like NASCAR owners, they can't worry about the car or the driver. They know it's dangerous.
Yeah,
And you're going close to 200 miles an hour. It's unrealistic. You look at the 49ers. They're without their guy. They got another one. They've lost their best pass rusher. They go out and get another. I'm sorry, but what makes this game so special is that sometimes you have to play shorthanded. And everybody, it's not just this team, everybody. Jaden's a competitor. He can play in pain. He's tough, but you need two of them. And, if you look around the league and it's just a fact. I'm glad they're not pushing him. I'm glad he is not pushing himself on the field. Marcus is more than capable of helping you win a ball game. He didn't have to win the season.
Right.
He's got to win a game. This is a week-to-week league. All of us in this business, we talk about the future because we got to cover 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour shifts.
Right.
So when I hear the question about playoffs, I go, really? Are you serious? How about prove? You haven't proven you can play 4 quarters of winning football yet. Let's do that first. Let's put together 4 complete quarters where we're at our best. Then all the opportunities open up. This schedule is perfect because you play them thugs twice in a month. So wherever you are, you know where they're going to be. If you want to knock them down a peg, you got them on the schedule. It's magnificent. I love the way the league is doing this now. You play your division in the end. No excuses. We got to get in position so that it does matter. Everything you do is so that you can have a chance to compete in the playoffs for the right to advance to the next week. So, we're in it. There's some people might be out of it. I don't think anybody mathematically, but I wouldn't want to be the Dolphins. And they're on our schedule. But they're not you don't know. It's not like it's a gimme. We haven't proven we can do anything yet until we do it. And because the teams that we beat up are bad teams, we have to beat a good team. Last year's team earned my respect because they beat the Eagles. They beat Detroit in Detroit. They had signature wins against people that are above 500. You can be friends and family and cheer them on if they beat a high school team. That's on you. I'm judging this thing, trying to make sure that come Thanksgiving, we're in position just to have a chance.
My man. Doc, to wrap this up, only a couple more questions for you.
Yeah, exactly.
With you being a former tight end, what do you think of the tight end room at the moment? I'm given that you love the bulldozer mentality of a running game, I would have to imagine you're a huge John Bates fan.
Yeah, I'm a huge Ertz. I love them all.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Cynic given more opportunities, but I don't see every practice. But obviously I'd love to see him play more in the air game. Love Bates. Oh my God, he's magnificent. And it reminds me of Donnie Warren, and a guy like that commits to something that's not popular. It's how you win championships. Everybody can't be Ertz. And everybody can't be Bates. Cynic blocks his butt off too. Blocking is not punishment. It gives you a chance to win. Nobody with a brain really wants to go in there and have his head scrambled up. But if that's what it takes, if that's your role, somebody's got to clean the windows. Somebody's got to take care of the roof. Somebody's going to do gutters in order to build a structure. So they're all willing. Our wide receivers block. If you look at, it's a very unselfish group. The backs block. Everybody gives you effort. I think they realize now that we're not talented enough yet to come out and walk through it. We got to sprint through it.
Right.
We got to be Charlie Hustle. We have got to be the team that out hustles the opponent, that out hits the opponent. And if Clifford gives us a chance to be physical, then we got to do it to a degree that where he goes, okay, let's do it again. It's not his personality. I understand that. But I beg him every week. I love the fact that he's so gifted. He is gifted. I need a little more thug in him. Because if we can get 3 by hand up, let's just take the 3 and move on. Let's just,
Right.
we don't have to outflank everybody every play. Part of this game is that I got to think that I can beat you on the line of scrimmage. If we can do that, we got a chance.
Absolutely love it, Doc. A little more thug in him. I think Fred Smoot would agree with you in that sense.
Well, Smooter knows it from a defensive standpoint.
Yeah.
All our guys hit, Smoot hit, Green hit, all of them. They have to. They pull them guards on them. They got to go in there and throw their body in there and cut that thing down. They've all done it. I covered Smoot. I covered all. I mean, I've seen it all from the sideline perspective. All these dudes are tougher. They wouldn't be on the team.
Right.
What now we got to do now is play like Lattimore. I love Lattimore. Let me see you try to cover a world-class athlete.
It's not happening.
When a world-class guy is throwing him the ball.
Right.
Dak Prescott he painted them balls on the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And Lattimore was as close as he could be. And if he needs more help, it needs pressure help, not safety help, pressure help. I'll take him. He never complains. He's a warrior. And we just got to keep that fight going. Cowboys offense is as good. And I know we don't like to admit anything about them. They are fantastic.
They are.
Offensively. And in the defense, we didn't take advantage of them being garbage. See, we should have piled that ball on their throat. You want to keep Dakota on the sidelines? Possession. Hold on to the ball. The Bears, I say I haven't gotten over the Chicago loss because we gave it away.
Yep.
If the Bears rip it from us, take it from us, I'm the first guy to shake their hand. It just murders me that we ruined a great atmosphere, a great crowd, a great night, and we were the nice guys, turning the ball over. This penalty thing now is driving me bananas because we're not talented enough to spot our opponent yards or points. It's just not going to happen. Not yet. We may end up being there.
Right.
But right now, and it's perfect that we have Kansas City. I'm so glad we're playing the Chiefs because then nobody that really understands the game expects you to win. No pressure.
Yep. Absolutely.
If we were playing Miami, I'd be a wreck. We're playing the Chiefs. So in my heart, it's just, I don't know. The only way we can win is to will our way to win. We can force them to turn the ball over. We can force them to be out of character. But we're going to have to physically do it. We're not going to trick them because they have better personnel. But what a stage to be on now. You play on Sunday, Monday, or Thursday, you know it. Even though you're a pro, you know that your high school teammates, ex-teammates in high school and college, they're watching.
Right.
Your neighborhood, the rec center, your pee-wee coaches. That's the thing that these primetime games give you. It gives you that reach that people you care about get to see you without paying. And if that doesn't motivate you, then you're just not the dude. I can't make you do it. You should just want to do it for the check. But we know now guys don't care about that. They're used to making money. And it's going to get worse because now they're coming in from college with money. Money used to be the thing. Go get the bag. They don't, man. You got to be even stronger than that. If DQ can't motivate you, you're a corpse.
Right. You're absolutely right, Doc. And it's funny because you make the comment about Smoot. The best quote we've ever had on this podcast was draft night interviewing Smoot. And he said he wanted George Pickens because he says we have too many nice guys on the team. Not everybody in the locker room should be smelling like Deacon cologne. And to this day, it still makes me laugh.
Well, I mean, he's an artist. I mean, Smooter is world class.
Dude, seriously.
I love him because he's relatable and he translates things because what we have to always understand is that the majority of people that are listening to you have never done what you're describing. This Madden thing has forced people to think they actually know the game. I hear people with bravado because they're good in Madden or they're good in fantasy, and they will challenge you, and that's great for the game. I love the wagering because it's great for the game. Now you better make sure you're legal with it,
right?
But I'm not against any other facets of football. I just specialize in tackle football. I like flag. I love the Olympics thing. Love women play. The women are balling out in flag. Love it. Love all that. But I specialize in talking about tackle football, not shells, not walkthroughs, none of that, because you can't win with that. I mean, we felt like we were, guy asked me the question the other day, and I don't compare anything to Joe Jackson Gibbs. But people go, what was it like? I go, let me ask you this. If you came into practice one early morning, or let's say one night you left downtown and you said, you know what, I'm just going to go here and sleep in the training room. And there was a car that had frost over it. And it was in his space. And the first time you realize this dude didn't go home. He slept at the park 3 days a week. Now, if that doesn't make you reevaluate yourself, he was making bank. He's in a great position. I can't let him want this more than I do. And he could be in it for much longer than I can. He led by example. You know, it's like JD5. We all last year, what did we talk about? This dude there, sun up.
Right.
You know, and I said, and Luke McCaffrey, it doesn't surprise me that Luke is doing what Luke's doing, because Luke's one of the few guys that was there with it. Luke started meeting him there. The problem with it is that it wasn't 25 guys or 35 guys. See, when I saw our guy, he sleep there, I said, okay, you got to you got to elevate what you talk this, but now you got to live it. You got to live it. And when you're out there, the way we practice, and you understood that what Joe was preparing you for, practice should be tougher than the game. You know, and so it's got to be more physical. It's just got to be. Now there's going to be a downside to that. But you got to make up your mind that what you signed up for is a contact sport. And it's going to require you giving everything you have for about 4 or 5 months of your life. If you can't do that, then you'll be ringless, because that's what it takes. The way the Eagles have established the way we're going to play this game, you can talk all that tush push you want, it works for them. I watched the Rams get stopped against the Niners. The Rams are better to me than the Niners. They didn't beat them. Yep. They couldn't get a yard. You'll be defined throughout this if you can't get a yard or can't stop somebody from getting the yard.
Yep.
So the basics, I don't care how fancy you are, oftentimes this game comes down to 4th and 1. And I've been on the winning side of both of them. And I'm telling you that all the technology, it comes down to, can you get a yard? Can you get a yard? Right. And we got the people to do it. The question is, will they be put in a position to do it?
I agree with you, Doc. I wish you're over here at the beaches by Delaware. I would love to have you come by and talk to my football team, to be able to talk some sense into them and take a practice seriously.
No, let me tell you something, man. I love them, I love them babies. I miss coaching so much. I got to do it for 7 years in our area around here, and I was just a volunteer. And I tell you what, it was 7 greatest years of my life being around a young. Problem is that it's so addictive. Yep. And then once you go there, you can't not come back. Right. You know, them kids, them kids, oh my God. I got to see them. I got to see my kids go through it, go to college and play ball. And coaching to me, it started with Little League for me. And those are the guys that put me in a position to where they taught me playing the game wasn't the final chapter. And, it was always about, did you win? My mom, and they never said, hey, how'd you do? The first thing out of their mouth, did you win? Mm-hmm. And then when you win as a kid, I was undefeated, in Pony League, 25-0. And when you're 13 and you're undefeated, or you're 12, that's why I still love the Dodgers. I was with the Dodgers, Little League. And when you win that, it's addictive. Right. And then when you lose, you realize it sucks. And then you start trying to do whatever you can do to be a part of winning. And then when you can win on every level, some people have done it, one in high school, one in college, one in pro. That's when you're trying to string it together. And then if you've been through it, and it's not always pretty times, but that's where you can translate it. That's why I love them young people, because they have to learn that at their age, it's all about balance, especially the guys that block up front, feet, hands, eyes. And then you find them kids that they got to learn how to do something good, one thing. They got to be better at one thing than everybody else. And how much time are they willing to put into it to become that? That's why basketball gets most of the credit, because you can go out to a hoop and dribble. Like, there's a reason Larry Bird was Larry Bird. Steph Curry, the guys who shoot the best, shoot more shots. Larry Bird was out of the barn in French Lick, Indiana, taking jumpers every night of his life. Nobody shoots more than Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Somebody could. Somebody could put up more shots than Steph. They don't. Nobody does. So these kids got to understand, find something that you like, and then your body's going to change, but your brain doesn't. So you just got to put in your mind that you're going to be good at something. And whatever God has given you, those tools, you try to enhance them. Not everybody's fast. Not everybody's big. Find out what he's given you, and then make a commitment to expand it. It's your toolbox. I tell you, it's all your toolbox. How many tools can you put in your box? Because you may need them. You don't know what you're going to need. A wrench, you're going to need pliers, you don't know what you're going to need. But get them in your toolbox so you have them. And then to make up your mind, I'm going to be really good at one thing, something, and then put the work in. And I guarantee you. And then if you can see better on the team, I mean, I wish I could golf, and hit the ball every time I hit a hole in one. Not gonna happen. Bowling, I wish I had a perfect strike. Not gonna happen. So find something that you can make work for you, that's realistic, and then put the work in. And then when a kid comes up to me and says, I put in the work, I lifted the weights, my nutrition's solid, I'm getting sleep, I'm doing all these things, and then I don't get result. Then I go, okay, you know what? You're going to be a future coach. You're going to be one of the best coaches ever.
Right.
You just find whatever you can get into. Maybe you're a better teacher than a participant. But I believe that you can impact their life in a way that's, because they have to meet Coach Cole. I mean, I had my Little League coaches at the Super Bowl 17. I had 5 of them there. My Little League coaches, they were the most influential guys in it, because they made it happen. If we win, we're going to McDonald's. We were 18-2. I didn't do it all, but I was trying to do my part and more to make sure I got to go to Mickey D's. Because if we lost, nothing.
Right.
That's why I always make these comments. I don't make stuff, I don't make this stuff up. I'm like, you got gourmet kitchen. Like, we didn't eat. We had food gifts delivered when we won. We got beer, we got bud, but they drop up all that when we won.
Right.
When we didn't win, that place was dark, and I believe in that. You want to get somebody, you got to teach them how to want something and earn it, and then reward them for it. And there's nothing wrong with it. Everybody do it their own way, but I just know my formula, and I never deviate from it, because I'm not going to be talked into Western style or what the fad is. I don't give a damn, none of that. None of it, because I haven't seen it work consistently. And so, we'll see. We've had some great contests that are going on right now. If you watch baseball, I mean, the series have been amazing. And now I'm pumping about the World Series, and NBA starts off, and you get the champs are taken to the brink. They got to go overtime, back-to-back nights. And they got one of their studs out. So what? They find a way to win, the Thunder. So I'm just a junkie when it comes to championship performance, people who get it, and watching how they are and why they are unique and others aren't. And if you didn't get off on watching Seattle and the Blue Jays, and you wouldn't be in the business you're in.
Right.
How can you not get off on that? I watched, the Caps just went through a great first period. That hockey thing, because it's so physical, it's violent, and they get to fight. I love it, but trying to figure out how you make it work. I watched first period. I was waiting to come on the show, and they're going through some transition. Last year was all about Ovi,
right?
But then they got dusted when it got in the playoffs. Because Florida, they didn't give a damn about Ovi. So I like seeing us build. I like the way Carberry runs the program. You need everybody, man. You need an entire top to bottom organization in order to win. We know that firsthand here in football.
Yes, sir.
We had crap and we put out crap. I think these guys now are the right people. Now they got to prove it and keep getting results.
Absolutely agree with you, Doc. I can't thank you enough, man, for finally being able to
I
get
owed
this
you,
done
man. I'm dragging you around. I'm running around and not being a good steward. Because in this business, man, I love podcasts. I love what everybody is doing that has a passion for the game. And the big fella and I, we're doing Burgundy at Bowl now. We just dropped it on YouTube, and it's a way to even get deeper and get into, because Linnell's so emotionally tied into this team, and our base is shattering. Some people want to do this, they want to wear that. They don't. We got to get everybody back together. It's going to be a process, but it starts with winning. And last year, there was just too many smiles, for us to go back to frowns. Yeah. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we get back.
Absolutely right, Doc. Well, I hope you enjoy the games tonight. Enjoy your weekend. And
yeah, we're winning. We're up 1-0. So that's the start. That's the start.
Hopefully those vibes will continue for you tonight, but also for the team on Monday.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm gonna be praying for him, and I'll be on the post game, and we'll have to deal with it. Hey, man, we'll hook up again.
My man.
I'm always there for you, man. Appreciate you, Pop.
I appreciate you, Rick.
God bless you,
night.
Man.
God bless you.
Have
a good weekend.
You. All right, peace.
Bye. All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Rick Doc Walker. It's been a long time. I missed Doc. Fantastic human being, and just the way he talks about football, it makes so much sense, dude. But to wrap this up, only a couple more questions for you. This one from Tim Towner. Playing a team like Kansas City with major speed threats should force you to play a too-high shell. Would you play a 3-3-5 or a 4-2-5? And who are the 5 DBs you'd put on the field? Well, the one thing about Kansas City is obviously they do have the deep threats over top, and that's what you have to be cognizant of. Pat with his arm, he can throw it from any position, any type of issue that arises, he's able to get the ball out of his hands, right? That's always something you got to be concerned about. So in that regard, the 3-3-5 would make sense. But then if you are doing well against the pass, well, here comes the run. Are you able to limit the run? Or is that going to bleed you dry to the outside, right? So ultimately, I fall on the 4-2-5. But in this 4-2-5, I would do it differently than what we would be doing right now. Like on one side, I'd be having Von Miller. I'd be having Johnny Newton, Deron Payne, and then I'd have Frankie Louvu down there, or Bobby, and I'd have Frankie and Jordan McGee at linebacker, creating that kind of 3-3-5, but ultimately using one of your linebackers as an actual rusher on that period, and then you can simulate your pass rushes by sending Jordan McGee or Frankie Louvu or Bobby from the linebacker position, and then have that linebacker drop off into the flat, kind of like Joe Witt has already done already. He was typically doing that with defensive ends, but this would allow you to take away that underneath route with the extra pressure that kind of confuse the offensive line to actually get home with the pressure. So if anything, I'd be going with the 4-2-5 and to be able to limit them as much as possible. But the one issue is if you are going to go with zone, if you are not going to bring pressure, you have to be able to tackle. And you got to be able to tackle in a physical, aggressive manner to make people not want to to catch the ball, right? Like that's the mentality that has to be implemented. It's easier said than done, of course, but that's the way you live. The next question from Tim. Did you see our personnel selections as being bad this offseason? Or goofy? Or just too old? I thought the plan was to play the long game and build with youth. But did we throw that out the window after we got a franchise quarterback and went 12-5? Was it a mistake to trade the picks we gave up for the players we got? And which of those players or any of the free agents we signed even considered in our long-term plans? Well, I would say Laramie Tunsil was certainly not a mistake. Getting a high productive left tackle is in the interest of any team, regardless of who they have at quarterback. That's something that you have to have. And that is not something I'm shying away from, looking away from. The Deebos selection the trade has already been proven to be fruitful. That was obviously necessary. We were missing out on Terry, and Deebo was able to carry that weight. And obviously that weight got to him a little bit with his heel. He's only missed 1 week, but I have no ill will with how they went through in the offseason. Dietrich Wise was playing incredibly well for this defensive line when he came in. Eddie Goldman, coming out of retirement, did very well as coming in for defensive tackle. He missed last week, or against the Bears, he missed. So these guys that they have brought in, the older types, you could say, I have no issue with. They were proven to be productive. They were proven to be doing well. The issue, I did say this last year, Tim, that going to the NFC Championship changed things. It accelerated the clock. As much as we want to say that's not a real thing, it 100% was. And that's how they kind of went about their business in the offseason. They didn't go down that route like the Eagles did, in the sense of having a bunch of draft picks and just waiting for the draft to be able to recoup that, right? The Eagles at this point are trying to give away draft picks in order to get some production in return. It's not like that's what they're kind of dealing with here. They kind of let the bullets go a little bit for right now production. And it's unfortunate that the injuries happened when they did, a tougher schedule. It's hard to do, but you got to put your big boy pants on. This is the NFL, and you got to win football games. It doesn't matter who's out there. It's a team sport. I do this with my football team. When we have scout team out there, I tell the scout team, if first team offense gets a first down on you, you're doing 10 push-ups. That has to be the implement from up down to the top, is that winning is what matters. It doesn't matter who's on the field. You have a job to do. It doesn't matter who you're going against. You have to be able to be successful at it. And that's something that I think that Washington right now is kind of dealing with, in just getting over of feeling sorry for themselves, because they got to get that confidence back of who they are and the mentality that they bring. And hopefully that's what Terry and Deebo can kind of ignite this Sunday, or this Monday night against Kansas City. Bright lights are on, and you got to go to work. All right, the last one from Tim Towner. Sports radio in Dallas, from talking about the record-breaking performance Dak is having this year. Credit most his success to the speed in which he is getting rid of the ball. Whether a short pass or a long pass, the ball is out in 3 seconds or less. This was Jaden's MO last year. Do you think Jaden is holding the ball too long? Has Cliff Kingsbury tried to grow the offense too quickly? Or have the QBs been thinking that their poop don't stink? I do think the last sentence there is definitely, it's a human element. It's a natural life thing for people. If you're really, really good at something, it's hard for you to take it seriously as something as you're bad at, right? Like, for instance, when I started in construction, right, my uncle told me, I don't think you're cut out for this line of work. And I've been in the industry for over 10 years now. But my first week, he kind of told me he wasn't sure I was going to get cut out for it. I could have sulked. I could have been pissed off about it. But I was like, you know what? Maybe he's right. But regardless, I'm going to work every single day to get better. That's what my mindset was. It's not just cliche. But it was like every day learn, get better, because I'm not okay with being crappy. I want to put a good product out there. I want, when I get my paycheck, to be earned, right? That's somebody that we're willing to pay for because they put in a good product, right? And so when you have that sort of mindset that there's something to work for, it's different. But when you are really good at something, you come in and flourish, there's going to be an obvious kind of relaxation, comfortability that kind of happens. And that's life, ultimately. It's God's design that you got to work harder. As much as you think it's going to be the certain way, there's going to be speed bumps. There's going to be issues. And so I think it's anybody's fault necessarily? No, I just think this is the way it was supposed to be. And you got to adjust. You got to work hard. You got to get together as a unit, as a team. And I think as a leader, this is where Jaden is kind of being stretched thin, in the sense of, like, this is your football team. Like, they take your identity. You have to show this football team how they act on the field, how they execute on the field. Take control of the team, right? Like, we can't just depend on the defensive captains to be the defensive captains. This is your football team. Anything that happens with this football team gets put on Jaden's shoulders. This football team not playing well the past couple weeks is being attributed to Jaden Daniels and his sophomore slump. That's the reality of the situation. Take control of it. This is your football team. You don't want to be a pompous a-hole, but in the same breath, like Tom Brady, when Tom Brady was on the field, Tom Brady was the leader of the entire team. He got them together and was able to talk to them when they needed to, when they made plays, when they needed to pick stuff up. Tom was the lead by example. Same sort of way for Jaden. And I think that as a leader, it's okay. You shouldn't expect that right away from him. It's something that has to be learned and earned. And I think Jaden has earned that, but has he taken full control of it yet? I'm not 100% sure about that, to be perfectly honest with you. But in regards to Dak and getting the ball out quick, obviously I think defenses are kind of adjusting to that. When you're in man coverage, especially in like man press, it's harder to get the ball out in those kind of screen games, the short games. Saw us last week against the Cowboys. We ran like quick hitches and they were right on it, you know. So when you're in man, it's like you don't really have that ability to get the ball out very, very quickly because that almost benefits the defender. It's in man is where you benefit from the crossers, where it's hard for a DB to stay with a crosser throughout the entire route unless he's just a freak athlete and reads exactly what's going on. Typically, you'll be able to get that step on a crosser. It's where zone comes in, is where that quick hitch, where those quick stops, the quick outs kind of work for you a little bit more at being able to get the ball out of your hands quickly. And then that screen game is where you can hit those zones pretty well because you know it's separated in the field and the zone coverage and their responsibilities. So it's a mixed bag, but I think Washington this is another speed bump for them, and it was never going to be easy the entire time. I think as a fan base, we have to realize that. Just take that with a grain of salt and just understand that things are going to happen. The sky isn't falling, but this is just another roadblock that they have to get over. And it's one of those things where, you know, God makes you can't reach greatness unless you struggle, right? And if you're able to get over that hump, if you're able to get over that struggle, it's going to teach you something very, very, very important in the long run. And that being is, if you're able to get over this hump, you could play with anybody. And that sort of confidence can really rocket a team into a situation where they're walking into any sort of situation feeling confident. And that's what you ultimately want. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Thank you to Tashan Reed. Thank you to Doc Walker. Thank you to Shannon. She said, I think even if Commanders was healthy, they would still be weak. Well, at least not a contending team. A chance? I appreciate it, Shannon. I hope you're a Washington fan. But thank you to Tim Towner. Thank you to Colonel. Thank you to Deluxe for your questions. If you made it this far, you're a frickin' champion. I appreciate you guys. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. If you'd like to submit your score predictions for this game, who's going to be the MVP, would love to hear your thoughts. All right, everybody. We'll see you again on Tuesday night, recapping the game on Monday night. My personal opinion, Washington's going to win because they're always going to win, in my opinion. And Washington's going to win this game 24-20. I don't know how, but they're going to. All right, everybody. I'll see you then. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support.